First, the debate over treatments for children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. Tonight, parents and doctors have their say on the medications used to treat it. Layla McKinnon has this special investigation.
Statistics have revealed children as young as 2 are being given stimulant drugs.
No one knows what this ADHD really is.
They say they're being used as human guinea pigs.
Children using drugs for attention and hyperactivity disorders.
There's a clear distinction between bad behaviour and the diagnosis of ADHD. They are not just naughty kids.
There's no doubt at all Jack Morrissey has always been a lively boy. He's not hard to spot here among his fellow preschoolers. Jack's the one taking the Rolf Harris sing-along to a whole new level. But Mum Kelly says her boy's behaviour went well beyond liveliness.
The little kids have a sleep in the afternoon. Jack wouldn't sleep. He'd wake everybody up and, run around and scream and yell and all of those things.
Day and night, he carried on at full speed, hardly sleeping, constantly talking, not making sense, and simply never stopping.
You trying to get into the dryer. And did I end up in the dryer?
You sure did. Well, you automatically think, oh gosh, is it something that we're doing wrong, parenting-wise? We even went to parenting classes to see whether that would solve anything.
At the age of 4, he was diagnosed by a paediatrician as having ADHD.
It was a relief because we could actually put our finger on what was wrong.
The specialist suggested cutting out processed foods, sugar, artificial colourings and flavours.
He had, just very plain diet, full of vegetables and meats and fruit, and we didn't notice any difference.
They tried fish oil supplements. They tried anything anyone suggested. But after a year, they made the difficult decision to try medication.
Why would you ever want to medicate your child? I hesitated at giving Jack Panadol if he's got a headache. Why would you ever want to put your child on medication that could potentially be a daily thing?
Since 2007, the number of children in Australia taking drugs for ADHD has increased 27%. There are now more than 59,000 kids on medication for the disorder. But not everyone in the medical profession is convinced.
I think that we're over-identifying children as having some kind of a mental illness that no one can really describe and no one has ever proven to exist.
Queensland psychologist Dr. Bob Jacobs doesn't believe in ADHD or its treatment with psychostimulant medication.
It's sort of a common thing on the street to refer to these drugs as kiddie cocaine.
He believes Ritalin and other drugs are being used as tools to make life easier for teachers and parents.
Children are less of a problem. They're more easily managed by parents and more easily managed by teachers. But it's no different than if we took leather straps and wrapped them up in them and tied them to the chair.
But that's not helpful and it's not scientific. It's easy to create fear and concern, but it's much harder to be helpful.
Professor Michael Cohen from the Children's Hospital at Westmead says evidence of ADHD is clear, even in brain scans of sufferers.
There's a delay in which the progress of development of the brain occurs, and secondly, there's some deviance in terms of areas of development in the brain as well.
So you can actually see that on scans?
Indeed you can.
He says medication makes a significant difference and can help parents of ADHD sufferers save their kids from a possibly difficult future.
They are more likely to see their sons and daughters in motor vehicle accidents. They are more likely to have speeding fines. They are more likely to have gambling problems. They're more likely to end up in jail.
I like playing my guitar. I like socialising with my friends over at the park.
Now 11 years old, Jack says his slow-release medication works so well he forgets about the ADHD.
What's the difference when you don't take your medication?
Well, when I don't have my medication, it's like thousands of TVs with like channels in them. And when I'm medicated, I can tune into one TV.
Were you trying really hard to be good before you took the medication?
Yeah, but it was really hard to.
Kelly says she now lives with the stigma around ADHD and drugs such as Ritalin. Even her own family threatened to inform the Department of Community Services if she gave Jack ADHD medication, but she has no regrets.
Putting Jack on medication wasn't about us as parents. It was all about Jack. You know, he has relationships at school now. You know, he's got friends, which he never had before. His school reports are way better. It's what Jack needs to help him, you know, succeed.
And stimulant prescribing in Australia is restricted generally to paediatricians and psychiatrists who've been assessed and authorised by their state health department. Right, they are 4 letters parents dread, ADHD, a condition that is commonly treated with drugs in Australia. But not everyone's convinced this is the best course, including the young man you're about to meet. After taking medication for much of his life, he's decided to quit.
It's 2:17 in the morning and I can't sleep.
It's day 1 and Danny needs a hit.
I just feel like I can't do it today.
What he's craving isn't cocaine or speed, it's his ADHD medication.
I haven't been taking my medication. I'm just wondering if there's any danger.
Drugs like Ritalin and Concerta are amphetamines.
When I was 4, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Yeah, I was just really hyperactive. I wouldn't sleep. I, you know, was just sort of always on the go and, you know, running up walls and whatever.
After his preschool teacher alerted his parents to his disruptive behaviour, Danny Giles was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder. For the next 18 years, Danny was popping pills, from dexamphetamine to Ritalin and then Concerta. Every time a new drug hit the market, a new prescription was written.
If you take your kid to a doctor and your doctor says, yeah, you need this, you're not going to say no.
But at 22 years of age, Danny began questioning if he really needed it.
I always noticed myself just being very anxious. I couldn't sleep and, you know, wasn't eating.
What drug was it that you were taking there?
Concerta. It was 54 milligram, the highest dosage that they have available. I sort of got sick of taking it and sort of thought, do I need it anymore?
A budding filmmaker, he embarked on an experiment, making a documentary on what life was like without his medication. It wasn't easy. This is Danny 5 days in.
I've got some sort of imbalance or something, I don't know.
Many of Danny's friends had similar experiences taking ADHD medication. He interviewed them for his doco.
The worst thing was I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't eat for the whole day.
I'd be so anxious I couldn't sleep.
His parents also began to have their doubts.
I suppose I'm still not 100% convinced that everybody that's diagnosed has got it.
You know, no one's monitoring it. Every time I go to the doctor, it's not like, oh, well, how you been doing? Well, maybe we can try to take you off this now. I go there and it's just like, okay, how you feeling? Yep, cool, all right, here's another dose.
More than 59,000 children in Australia are on medication for ADHD. But while prescriptions for drugs like Ritalin and Concerta are on the rise, not everyone in the medical profession is convinced it's necessary.
There's no evidence that any kind of a real condition exists. It's a list of symptoms that can describe any child who's not conforming to authority and not pleasing to adults.
Queensland psychologist Dr. Bob Jacobs has strong words for those taking medication to deal with the condition.
They're very, very dangerous drugs with long and short-term side effects. Difficulty with sleeping, difficulty with eating.
I would leave the house and I would sort of start to panic a bit, sort of start to think, oh, you know, I haven't had my medication, oh, am I going to be okay? Like, I was very dependent on it, I was sort of relying on it.
I think there's quite a few pretty significant and insidious psychological deficits, which include children coming to believe that they need a drug to be okay, that they need to take some kind of a drug to fit in.
I feel like I don't know what's what anymore.
You know, you go to the doctor gives you advice and you try to follow it because you believe it's in the child's best interest.
And what we're trying to do then is to improve the function of the young person in a way that improves the quality of their life.
Professor Michael Cohen, the Director of Total Health Care, believes ADHD medication can be necessary in some cases, but cautions the medical profession to take more care in the ongoing treatment of patients.
Their situation will change. Their structure and function of their brain changes. The effects of medication will change. All of that needs to be reviewed as the young person progresses in life.
As for Danny, he's been off his medication for more than 4 months, put on nearly 10 kilos, and says he's never felt better.
I'm sleeping a lot better. I'm eating like crazy. You know, I've got a really big appetite now, and I definitely don't worry about things anymore.
I don't think that I needed it. I think that everybody else needed me to have it.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it. Yeah, I'm happier being off the medication, yeah.
And as always, we recommend you seek professional advice before going off any prescribed medication.
Well, a very alarming story in The Australian today. Experts have warned that parents who don't medicate children with ADHD could be referred to child protection authorities. Joining me with more is today's psychologist Jo Lamble. Good morning to you, Jo.
Morning, Leslie.
Now, this recommendation is contained in draft guidelines being considered by the National Health and Medical Research Council. I'll quote it. It says, consideration should be given to the ability of the child, adolescent and their caregivers to implement strategies. As with any medical intervention, the inability of parents to implement strategies may raise child protection concerns. What's your response to that?
It's really worrying, isn't it? Especially because these days a lot of people, there's this feeling that ADHD is being overdiagnosed and medications are being overprescribed. So I think this would be very worrying because in my experience, parents are very reluctant to go straight for that medication route because they want to explore other factors such as diet and their behavioural problems maybe in the home as well as maybe some cognitive difficulties. So this might really worry them. They might think, oh wow, I'm going to be reported if I don't go straight down that route.
And the problem is there have been so many conflicting reports over ADHD, whether or not kids are being overprescribed as well. And so many cases, they say, sit on the borderline of needing medication or it's just a behavioural situation.
That's right. And we also don't know the long-term effects of these medications. So it is worrying. But these guidelines, they do say that other factors should be considered first. And you really do need to get many assessments before you go down that path. But they are saying that some children will benefit from medication, and if that's the case, then parents need to be alerted to that. And this is not just about ADHD, because it's also could refer to people with asthma or diabetes, and if parents are not following their doctor's guidelines, they might be reported. So it's very worrying because I think parents have enough trouble trying to work out what's best for their kids without the fear of authorities coming down on them.
This may also stop parents going to get medical advice to find out whether or not a child has ADHD as well. So what is your best advice to a parent who suspects that their child might have it?
Yes, I think you do need to have a couple of opinions, and also I think you recommend to go down the psychological route as well. So to look at behavioural interventions, look at diet, look at the whole environment and get them assessed for learning difficulties as well, and then maybe assess the need for medication and whether go on a short 3 to 6 month trial to see if that might help. But yeah, it's a long-term process, this diagnosis of difficult disorders, and I'm really feeling for parents.
Yeah. Okay, Jo Lamble, always good to get your take on things.
Well, another debate on how young is too young to give children Ritalin. Under new guidelines, children under 7 could be prescribed the drug. Howard Gibbs reports.
Elliot, would say at 3, I'm a naughty kid. I don't like myself because I'm naughty. And he was a huge risk taker. And at times, I did think, if this child lives to be an adult, I'll be relieved. I really worried about that just because he was quite difficult to manage, just so full of energy.
No parent likes to put their child on medication. They struggle with that, and with the negative stigma that's evolved around this condition, parents are even more reluctant to trial such medications.
Ritalin is a dirty word to many parents worried children with ADHD could end up as medicated zombies.
You don't know the risks down the line, so that's what I'd be worried about.
Drug addiction very early.
I think it's a last resort.
Now the authorities are giving Ritalin a cautious green light for children under 7.
It really puts the brakes on him, or helps him put the brakes on in a way that he couldn't before.
Danielle Fisher's 6-year-old son Elliot started Ritalin treatment nearly a year ago after many other non-medical interventions simply hadn't worked.
Within a week of starting Ritalin, Elliot said at age 5.5, Mummy, thank you so much for getting these tablets for me. They really help me to play Lego, because he can just sit down and create and, build. And, I think for him it's had a very positive effect.
The end of Elliot's difficult behaviour has been a blessing for this whole family, and Danielle says they carefully monitor his health and habits. But happy endings like theirs are unlikely to start a stampede for Ritalin.
Any medication for children under 7 is actually quite controversial, and it's probably the last resort.
Psychologist Dr. Carolyn Stevenson from Macquarie University believes Ritalin should only ever be one component of an ADHD treatment plan.
The real key here is you're looking at managing quality of life issues and helping a family function. And if medication can promote that, then it may need to be part of the management plan, but not the first protocol.
Are the side effects any worse for a child under 7?
No, not really. What we would do is monitor closely their appetite, perhaps their sleep patterns, because they may become more wakeful.
Education consultant Mark Brantman has treated 3 of his own kids with Ritalin. He estimates around 5% of children have ADHD, though only a small proportion will ever be diagnosed with it. To the disgust of many experts, some popular opinion still insists the best treatment is simply a bit of good old-fashioned discipline.
We are not looking at naughty children, and we are not looking at parents who can't parent. We're looking at a neurological condition which affects the frontal lobes of the brain.